Okay, now I'm going to show you similar animation in DaVinci Resolve using the Fusion tools. So first thing I've got to do is two images I'm going to drag onto the timeline. One is the pumpkin and the other is the blue underface. And then we go into the effects library, effects, and then a fusion composition. And you drag that onto the timeline. And then you stretch it. We'll do it just about 15 seconds. And then we go into Fusion. And here we have our media out. And then you want to make sure you have the media pool here. So then you want to open your media pool so you have access to these two images here. And you're going to make a number of these nodes. And the way that Fusion works is you work off of these little squares that are called nodes, and you kind of connect them together. And this is how you would make layers in After Effects. So up here you have all these different types of effect nodes. We're only going to work on a couple of them, the merge and the background, and then a couple of tools. So then you want to bring a background down in here. And what you do is you end up connecting these nodes together. And I'll explain this more later, but I just want to show you a little bit quickly. So you take that little tab right there and you connect it to the media out. And the media out is what you're going to actually see in your work. And then what you want to do is you want to take two of these, hold it on there till you get a blue line, and that's called a merge. So what you do is you end up connecting things to that timeline. And we want only two merges here. One more merge. And then later we could add another one. Let's say we wanted to add some effects or something like that. And then we can connect things to those merges. So here we're going to put the pumpkin down there, and that's media in. And then you can connect it right onto the merge too. And you see it shows up there. And then it ends up being a little bit big because this is a different kind of infusion. It brings the media in a different way. So what you want to do is scale that down. And I think you could bring it down to, we'll do 0.65, and then I'm going to bring the other one down, the blue underface, and connect it to merge 2. And same as this one, I need to shrink the size to 0.65. That way, when I eliminate with the green screening, once I eliminate that green screen, then you'll be able to see the eyeballs underneath. So that's the first thing I need to do. And you see these little buttons here, right under there. If you click on that, it'll be on this screen. If you click the other one, it'll be on the other screen, but we don't need those. Okay, now we want to bring effects down onto it. So we go into the effects library, tools, we want matte for green screen, and the delta keyer. So we'll bring the delta key onto here. And then this comes up, and it's very simple. You just take the eyedropper and you drag it onto the green. And you see it's already green screened it, and then it's gotten rid of what's behind there. So now you just have that face behind there. Now we want one more tool on there, and here you have to click onto the timeline and then right click, and it says add tool. And we want to go down to warp. You can try out a lot of these different tools, and grid warp. And then you see it makes this grid right here. And what you want to do with that grid, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this down a little bit. You can actually move these a bit, make everything smaller, more compact. Drag this down, and you can even make it a little bit bigger. There we go. So now you want to click on that grid warp, And in here with the grid, you can actually distort things. So, and there's several ways of doing it. You want the show destination, and then you could work with region, selected, or magnetic. And I'll show you. We're going to skip region. We'll do selected and magnetic. And we'll start a little bit with magnetic. And then you want to shrink the grid size, both axes, so you have a lot more grid there. So I'm only going to show you just a little bit because I don't want to take up too much more time with this. And you want keyframes for animation. So once you click that keyframe, it'll animate it. So you can move this ahead. We'll maybe start with the selected. And so you can select certain points and kind of move them. So what we're going to do is maybe just work a little bit on the eyebrow, bring that up. You can bring a bit of the other eyebrow there, or maybe this particular one. And you can actually highlight several. Now, it's a little bit unfortunate that the grid is the same color as the apple. That's kind of a bit of an accident there. So go to the grid warp again. So this has brought us a little bit closer in to see what we're doing there. Now, you can highlight just by click and drag. You can highlight a few of them, and you can warp a few things at once. So here we could kind of bring the and you can kind of bring the mouth together a bit. See, this is not nearly as effective as in After Effects. So you could just take these and move them around a little bit like that. So you'll see these move kind of slowly. And then if you like, you can actually revert to normal again and then start fresh with different facial expressions. Now I'm going to show you the magnet here. And you can change kind of the magnet size if you like. Now, if you like, you can also put a grid warp onto the face underneath. And again, you just have to click on it, right click, and the add tool comes up, down to warp, over to grid warp. And then again, make the grid size a lot more grid in there. So we'll go back to there, and then we'll just hit revert, and then we'll bring this head a little bit. And then if you want to kind of move the mouth around a little bit, you could. You could kind of even stretch it out, maybe make the magnetic strength a little bit less. You could even kind of move the eyeballs around a bit. Now, probably it would have helped to make slightly bigger eyeballs in there. So you need to decide what kind of distortions you want to do in here. And then again, you can hit revert and it goes back to normal. And it'll keep all those changes in there. Now it takes a long time for it to render, so you won't actually see all the movements in there. Go back to selected. And you got these little tools on there where you can twist it a little bit. Okay, now if you want in here, we'll bring this back down to 100. And if you wanted to do something like add text or something, you could put one more merge in there, and you could just add text to it. So you could put some apple face on there, and then you could just go to the merge, and then you could move these to different places using the there you go. Okay, we will now go back into here. Now it takes quite a long time to render it, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to export it. Remember how to export it. H264. apple face, video, QuickTime, MP4, add to render queue, and start render. Now we're back into DaVinci Resolve, and I'm going to show what you can actually do with those little animations you made. For example, here's one of them. Here's another one. Here's the blue parts and the winged man. Okay, so we're going to start with a landscape here. I'm just going to put them on kind of randomly and let them spin around and do things. So we'll start with this apple. These ones look a little bit similar, but they're not actually. Don't need the soundtracks. So with this one, what we're going to need to do is to crop it and then blue screen it. But we'll do that. We'll do them together. Same thing. We'll crop the edges off. These two are very similar, although done in different programs. And that one pretty well just needs to be green screened. So we go back into Fusion to do these. There you go. That one has disappeared, the background. I will do this one. See, as soon as you click on these, it automatically sets up the nodes there. Always it's matte, delta keyer. Oh, actually, I should have made those little eyeballs blue because they also disappeared. Well, that doesn't really matter. Okay. Now when we go back to the timeline, now what I want to do in each one of these, I'm going to put the transform keyframes. So everything will change as I move it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make it small at first. Position it down here. Bring it forward a little bit. Rotation, we'll just put a little keyframe there. And we'll let it rotate a couple of times and shrink a bit and spin off into oblivion. Okay, that's one. Again, this one we can do the transform and opacity. So we're going to start with it. Just let it zoom in. In opacity, we'll put a keyframe there. Another one there. And bring the opacity down to 0. We'll start that one off large. And bring that opacity down to 0. And then spring it to life. And then make it grow smaller. And so with this one, we clearly want it to start small. I'll let it start down here. Put a bit of rotation on there. And let it fly off into oblivion. Then I'm going to let it slip back down. Okay, now let's see what happens. So that one started a little bit in the wrong spot. So now what we're going to do is we're going to kind of stack these up kind of randomly. and then we'll export it.